Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Buffalo Sports Insider, the best podcast in the 716. Joined by me today is Alex Miley, Michael Lastique, and Shay Wirt. My name is Thomas Bailey. I'll be your host for today's episode. As we get started here, we're going to talk a lot about the Sabres, Bandits, and we'll even have some football included here later on as well with our good friend Shay across from me. We're all ready to go, but of course, like always, make sure you tune in on Facebook, YouTube, everywhere. Go follow us, support us, because we're pumping out articles every single day. We have BuffaloSportsInsider.com, so make sure you love all these types of things. We put a lot of effort into it, and we appreciate your viewership. With that being said, let's get started here. We got Buffalo Sabres news, and I'm going to start right off the top here with a little bit of sad stuff before we get into the game. As you see, 7-0, Buffalo is going to take down the LA Kings, but we did it without a guy named Owen Power, who's week to week with an injury right now. According to head coach Don Granato, Power was injured during practice on Monday when trying to move the puck on a puck-moving drill and was seen taking his glove off several times before officially being brought back to the locker room. That's a big hit for the Buffalo defense, but it seemed not to matter. A 7-0 victory, the largest game in a long time, at least for me. Me and my good buddy Alex here, we were both there at the game. It was a fun game. Alex, what do you have to say about this?
Oh, yeah, that game was probably the best Sabres game I've ever watched live. We just dominated from
on offense to on defense. It felt like whatever we wanted to do, we could get away with. We were finishing our chances on offense, which has been a struggle this year. On defense, even if they were getting good chances, we were able to take them away. And then when it came down to it, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen continued his hot streak, as he has been elite the last couple of months. I just saw an interesting stat this morning that he is leading the league in goals saved above expected since December 30th, with 17 goals saved above expected. It's just been insane to see the growth from last year to this year as he's turned into an elite goalie.
Yeah, man. A really big, important part to note here is Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, the first Buffalo Sabres goaltender for a long time, since 2011-12 season when Ryan Miller did it, to have at least 4 shutouts in a season. Miller had 6 that year. We'll see if Luukkonen can catch him here in the final weeks of the season. Other than that, though, the 33-save shutout from Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, but Peterka would score his 7th opening goal of the season. He's only second in the entire league to David Pastrnak, who has 8 opening goals to start a game. Other than that, Jordan Greenway scores twice in the game. There were 6 different goal scorers, including Peterka and Greenway. A very good offensive night for Buffalo. So that brings me to a big question from all of us here. What was more impressive for the Buffalo Sabres in this game? There's 7 goals scored on offense, or Luukkonen getting another shutout against a very good LA Kings team? I'll start with you, Shay.
So, when looking back at the game, I think that, goals get the crowd excited, and I think that scoring 7 goals is definitely more impressive. Coming from a team who has the second least amount of goals in the Atlantic Division, I think that getting 7 goals, the offense was firing on all cylinders, and I think that the Sabres can pick up the momentum now from a game where they had their most goals since December 21st.
Yeah, 7 goals is definitely very impressive, honestly. Having a shutout is really good, but having a shutout, having 7 goals is really, really impressive.
I'm gonna have to go with the shutout.
On 33 shots, that is extremely impressive. Normally, when you see a shutout, you can attribute a lot to it with defense. Usually it's like 20, 25, maybe even less shots than that. He did on 33 shots, and a lot of them were on like strong opportunities. There was a lot of times in the game where I'm like, bad turnover, or maybe we were being too aggressive on offense, and they would get a 3-on-2, a 2-on-1, or even on their power play, they'd get some real nice setups, and it just didn't matter. Ukko was everywhere. He was extremely dominant, so I'm going to have to go with the shutout being more impressive.
Me personally, I think that both are very impressive for both sides. Of course, the offense has struggled a lot recently, so I will give it to the offense. They haven't been able to pick up that pace too much. Didn't really score much against the Blues. Couldn't really do anything there. Only got the 1 goal. Dallas's game, they only got the 1 goal as well. So it's impressive to see them pot 7 goals against David Rittich and Cam Talbot even, who entered the game afterwards, because Talbot's an all-star in this league, and for him to score a couple goals against Cam Talbot is very impressive in my book. But shout out to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Moving forward, though, the Buffalo Sabres have a game against the Florida Panthers coming up on Thursday night at 7 p.m. in Buffalo at KeyBank Center. The Sabres are coming off that 7-0 win against the Kings. The Florida Panthers are coming off a 4-0 win against the Colorado Avalanche. So both teams coming in off shutout victories. Sabres are going to enter this game with a 23-25-4 record, which is attributed to 50 points. 5-5 in their last 10 games with the win, so dead even there. In a stacked Atlantic Division, the Buffalo Sabres sit 7th, only ahead of the Ottawa Senators, and 14th in the conference, ahead of Ottawa and, of course, Columbus in the Metropolitan. When you look at the other side, you got the Florida Panthers. We're thinking too much about football here. They enter with a 33-15-4 record, which is 70 points. They're 6-2-2 in their last 10 on a 2-game winning streak. And when you think about this, they're second in the Atlantic Division behind only Boston. So we'll see what they can do here.
So I don't think they're going to be able to pull this one out. Florida's
Very strong team. They have an insane top two lines led by Barkov and Reinhardt on the first line and Tkachuk on the second line. And the Sabres have been extremely inconsistent this year. And I think Florida pulls this one out 4-2. I just think they have too much firepower for the Sabres to be able to keep up.
Yeah, agreed on the inconsistency part. I mean, when you can see it off their record. I mean, 23 and 25 is pretty bad. But, I don't think they're going to pull this game out. I think it'll be possibly like a 2-4 goal sheet. So, yeah.
I agree. Same with me. The Panthers have been very good this year, and Sam Reinhart, who's actually formerly drafted by the Buffalo Sabres, has been having an excellent season with 64 points so far in 52 games. And for a team that's second in the Atlantic Division right now, they've had some really good form. They've won 6 out of their last 7 games, and I'm predicting a 5-2 win for the Panthers.
All right. Me personally, I think the Florida Panthers are going to come away with a 4-3 victory in this game. Buffalo's very inconsistent. We see it a lot. The Sabres don't normally win back-to-back games. I mean, you see 5-5 right now. We'll have to see what they can do. So we'll end up seeing what this Sabres team does. But moving along, we'll head to the Buffalo Bandits. They have a game on Friday, and they're going to be taking on the Halifax Thunderbirds, who both teams are going to enter this game with a 5-3 victory. The Bandits are currently ahead of Halifax, having beaten them earlier in the season. 16-14 win against Toronto and 15-14 win against Rochester have Buffalo on a 2-game win streak. 3 games for Halifax, who have beaten Rochester, Philadelphia, and Las Vegas in back-to-back-to-back games. Buffalo has won 4 of their last 5. They look to keep that streak going. A very iffy season for Halifax, very streaky. They lost 3 in a row. Now they've won 3 in a row. We'll see how they do, but I'd like to get you guys' thoughts here. What do you think is going to happen in this game? Who do you think is going to be some of the top performers, and what overall do you think is going to be the final score?
This game marks the midway point of the year. Both of the teams, like Will said earlier, are very close in the standings with 5-3 record, and their offensive statistics are very similar, with Halifax scoring 105 and the Bandits scoring 104. But the Bandits have allowed 10 more goals this year with 95 or 99 allowed. So with this game being a must-win away for the Bandits, I think that it is going to be a 13-10 win away from home.
So 13-10 win for the Buffalo Bandits. Alex?
I think the Bandits are going to pull this one also. I think as coming off a championship last year, they return a lot of the same team. I think they're able to pull this one out 16-13, a very high-scoring game. But I believe Buffalo has the firepower to be able to pull this out.
Honestly, I feel like Buffalo can definitely pull it out. They are 2 even teams, but offensively, I feel as if Buffalo can definitely pull it out.
Oh, my fault. So the Buffalo State. Yeah, Buffalo State. Oh, man. Segueing in here to the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade, there were shots fired at Union Station, as per TMZ. A very sad thing, though, for the Kansas City Chiefs, as we have one of our Chiefs fans here in the booth. He's been Chiefs fan ride or die for a long time now. We'll have to see how this all goes. But, Shay, what do you think about your team winning the Super Bowl this year, man? It must feel pretty nice as us Buffalo fans have to keep dealing with y'all beating us.
Yeah, it's no better way to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs on a Buffalo Sports podcast.
So I'm looking forward to it. And actually talking about the shots fired, my mom and dad were actually at the parade, and I heard that there were a ton of cops around Union Station, which was one of the locations of the parade. And I don't know any more information, but I do know that my parents are safe, which is a good thing.
There are 2 shooters in custody. We're continuing to bring that up to everybody. And we've got our story on social. We'll include that later on. But very upsetting news nonetheless, though, for these Kansas City Chiefs fans. I mean, all they really did was just want to be there to celebrate their team winning a very, very good season of football and winning the Super Bowl nonetheless. As Michael, what do you think about the Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl?
I think it was a very great game defensively, honestly. Like, both of these teams really came out strong defensively with 2 fumbles, big fumbles at that. If the 49ers would have came out and, scored on that first drive, I felt like that game could have went totally differently, but it went how it went, and it definitely was a great game defensively, and I'm glad the Chiefs won.
Yeah, it's certainly a very big momentum changer for
Definitely.
that fumble
To happen so early on into a game. You never really see a guy like Christian McCaffrey fumble too often, I think. I mean, sure, that is his first career Super Bowl appearance, first of potentially many, as the 49ers have a very, very good roster. We'll have to see what ends up happening with all of that, but we kind of segue here a little bit into the Buffalo Bills. What do we think they're going to do with this offseason? There's a lot of question marks for this Buffalo team. There's a lot of things they have to get going with in the offseason. And I'm going to turn it over to Alex. What do you think is the biggest factor in deciding how good Buffalo is next year?
I think it's the draft.
We're not going to be able to make too many plays in free agency, as we are currently projected -40, -$50 million in cap space, and we have free agents of our own that we need to bring back. So hopefully we can bring back some of those guys, but it really comes down to the draft. If we want to get out of this cap situation, we're going to have to be able to draft very well. There's a couple positions of need that come to mind. Wide receiver is a strong one, as Gabe Davis is projected to leave. Safety is a strong one, as Hyde's projected to leave, and Poyer's getting up there in age. And then defensive line, as we currently only have 3 defenseman linemen under contract past this season, as Ed Oliver, Rousseau, and Von Miller. Everyone else is a free agent this year, so depending on who we can bring back, D-line is going to become huge also. But I think the draft is definitely the most important factor this offseason.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Honestly, if they attack the draft like how they attacked the draft last year with Kincaid and even previous years, James Cook, they can really make an impact in the league. It's not going to be fast. It's not going to be, a one-year thing where they just go in and be great. They're going to have to take their time and really focus in on the key spots that they need in order to really progress.
When looking at the Bills, after I've seen a few games this year, I think they're a really solid team. I think they have a lot of really good pieces on that roster, offense and defense. I think towards the end of the year, I think injuries kind of took a bit of a toll on the defensive side of things, but I do think that the Bills are the favorites going into next year for making a deep run into the playoffs. And what separates the good teams from the great teams is being able to grind out those wins at the end of the year. And I think if Buffalo does well in the draft and free agency, I think that they have a very serious chance of being a Super Bowl contender in the next season.
As most of you guys are aware, the Buffalo Bills are like -$50 million
In cap space. They have a lot of issues going on with this offseason. A lot of players they have to re-sign, defensive line, wide receiver Gabe Davis, tons of other things that the Buffalo Bills need on top of that as well. I mean, a lot of things have been segued into coaching. A lot of things can be segued into players. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in this Buffalo Bills offseason that's going to change how they look. I think personally, though, it will be the NFL draft that makes or breaks the Buffalo Bills season in 2024. I think they need a defensive lineman, at least one. I think you need to get a safety potentially with Hyde potentially retiring or leaving in free agency. Even a linebacker would be nice, as we're losing some depth with Tyrell Dodson. A couple other things as well, being receiver, of course, and a very stacked wide receiver class. I'd be absolutely shocked if the Bills do not make a receiver pick at least once in this draft. Other than that, though, we're going to segue back into the Chiefs a little bit here. Shay, I have a really weird question for you, my man. Who do you think poses the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs in 2024?
Overall, conference.
Okay. I'm not gonna lie. I do think that the Buffalo Bills are a threat. I think that the Chiefs have taken a lot from them in the last few years, and I think that they want that revenge. And I can just see it. I can see it in their team. I can see it from the fans. I think that they really want to beat us. And I'm kind of nervous about that next year. And also like Ravens, 49ers. But I do think that the Bills-Chiefs matchups, especially in the playoffs, have been amazing. And I don't see either quarterback, with their form dropping ever. So I think Josh Allen had an amazing year. And I think that it's just going to keep going with him. And it's going to be a struggle for the Chiefs to continue to beat Buffalo in the playoffs.
All right, guys, the last little thing we're going to talk about here in today's episode
is the early prediction of who we think is going to win the Super Bowl next year. Super Bowl matchup and prediction for who's going to win. I'd like to start with you, Michael. I know you're a big football guy.
Honestly, I don't have one right now, but my top pick would be the Ravens. I just love how they have every kind of piece I feel like they need in order to win. They just need to bring it together. They need to change a little bit of the culture. They need to just find ways to win and actually beat Patrick Mahomes because he's undeniable, man. I mean, he's the guy.
I'm going to have to go with I see the matchup being next year. I think it's going to be Bills Rams. I know the Rams coming out of the NFC, I think, is going to be a little shocking. But the Bills, they return at least 10 out of 11 starters on the offensive side of the ball. They're going to have a full season with Joe Brady to implement his offense. They're probably going to bring in a receiver. The offense was already very young this year, so I only see it getting better. And the defense, we dealt with so many injuries last year. Even though we're losing some players in free agency, we're bringing back players like Matt Milano and Trey White, who hopefully can stay healthy for a full year. And then I love the hiring of Bobby Babich. I think he's going to be a great defensive coordinator. He'll take some of the pressure off McDermott. And then in the NFC, I think you saw how well the Rams were this year with how depleted that roster was. Stafford getting healthy really brought that team back into contention. This year, they can make a lot of moves to create some cap space, and they can go out and make a lot of big moves. They have a very young team with a great draft class from last year, and I think Stafford with McVay can lead them through the NFC and bring them back to another Super Bowl.
So I'm gonna make a bias pick. I'm gonna say
it's gonna be a three-peat for the Chiefs, which you don't really see ever. But here's how I look at it. Mahomes had his worst statistical season of the year this year, and he was still able to perform at a high level when he needed to down the stretch. The Chiefs had some pretty bad results this year, losing to Denver away, which is like the first time it's happened in years. Losing to Oakland at home and barely edging the Vikings and Jets this season. It didn't look like it was going to be a year where they were going to be competing for a Super Bowl. Also with a pretty broken wide receiver room. I expected a lot more from Kadarius Toney this year and from Sky Moore.
As did many.
Yeah. And it was very frustrating to see them take a huge dip in form when I thought that it was going to be a year where our receiving core was not going to be a problem. But it's going to be a really big year for Rashee Rice and also for Isaiah Pacheco, two guys who were very, very underrated coming out of college. Actually, on NFL.com, their scouting reports, it said that Pacheco was going to be an average backup or special teams player, and Rice had the potential to be an above average backup by NFL's ratings. So they kind of jumped into a position that they didn't think they were going to be in. Pacheco in his second year, Rice in his first year. So I do think that they're going to keep developing and be a huge, important piece of the Chiefs roster. And I think that Kansas City will win the Super Bowl again.
All right, folks, to wrap it up here, I'm going to mention one more time about, as per TMZ, the shots fired at the KC Super Bowl parade. 1 was killed and 10 were injured. It's very upsetting news for all of us here at Buffalo Sports Insider. My thoughts and prayers, as well as everyone else in this room, go out to the people of Kansas City for a very, very sad moment of realistically one of the best things in sports right there, Super Bowl parade, celebrating a championship and something like that to happen. We'll have updates as this situation continues on BuffaloSportsInsider.com, so do not forget to like all this stuff. We do post a lot of different things, not just Buffalo anymore. We are very, very segued in this. Our hearts are going to go out to everyone in Kansas City that is at this parade. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Thomas Bailey, joined by Michael Lustig, Shea Wirt, and Alex Miley. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time on Buffalo Sports Insider.